Skill 2 and a very good evening, everyone. Welcome back once again to MSBS Weekly Guided Meditation by Phra Goh. Today is the 16th of January 2024, our second class for this year. I'd like to extend a great welcome to all new viewers to this channel. We are very glad and grateful to have with us Bhante Adhibalo, popularly known as Phra Goh, to conduct this weekly meditation session. This week, Bhante will be continuing on the topic on Maha Satipatthana Sutta. Bhante will be leading the homage to the Buddha and taking a 5 precepts for Buddhists. Now let us compose our mind, put our palms together and welcome Bhante. Over to you, Bhante.
Okay, thank you, Terence. Let's continue from, Okay, so we start off with paying respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow, second bow, third bow. And the homage chant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato Samma sambuddhassa. 3 refuges. Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. And the 5 precepts. Pāṇātipada viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Adinādāna viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kāmesu micchācāra viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musāvāda viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Surameraya majjapamadatthāna viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Okay. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Alright, good evening everyone. Tonight we are continuing with this topic on the Maha Satipatthana Sutta, the greater discourse of the foundations of mindfulness. So last week we covered partially on the mindfulness of the body, and today we shall continue. So we talked about the activities last week. So basically the takeaway is that every activity that we do, we can still be mindful of impermanence. So nowadays there are a lot of people that teach mindfulness that emphasize more on the secular mindfulness. They talk about, for example, when you eat, you have to know all the taste and the flavors of the food or the drink. When you move, you need to know every movement. You need to remember what are the items you place, which angle, which position, until that extent. So it's more of like circular kind of mindfulness, which is nothing wrong, useful in day-to-day life, but it doesn't reflect or it doesn't lead to spiritual detachment. It may not necessarily lead to detachment. A person, for example, can be very mindful of all the tastes of the food, but if they are not mindful of impermanence, then they won't have detachment, right? So those people are teaching circular kind of mindfulness. Even the Buddhist communities, they forget to emphasize impermanence. And when they talk about, okay, you have to be aware of all the tastes, one may end up having more craving, more desire. Likewise, all the movements and the sharpness and accuracy, precision, any robber, any soldier, any kind of occupation that requires this kind of precision may benefit. I talk about robbers and thieves, yeah, they also benefit, but it doesn't lead to detachment, doesn't lead to a wholesome mind. They are more skilled in what they're doing if they have precision, so that is what circular mindfulness is leading. It doesn't lead to detachment, it doesn't lead to reduction of greed and craving. So that's the kind of takeaway from last week. And today we are moving to these impurities of the body. So I'll just read through the paragraph and I'll comment a bit here and there. Furthermore, just as if a sack with openings of both ends were full of various kinds of grain, wheat, rice, mung, beans, kidney beans, sesame seeds, husked rice, and a man with good eyesight pouring it out were to reflect, this is wheat, this is rice, these are mung beans, these are kidney beans, these are sesame seeds, this is husked rice. In the same way, a monk reflects on this very body from the soles of the feet on up, from the crown of the head on down, surrounded by skin and full of various kinds of unclean things. In this body there are. So the Buddha is giving a metaphor, an analogy. Instead of naming the body part straight away, he's giving an example of a skilled farmer, for example, or skilled merchant, able to differentiate all the different kinds of seeds or beans or rice. So they are able to differentiate. Now, once they're all mixed up together in a bag, once they open up, they're able to tell the difference. So the Buddha is now moving on to the actual practice, which is to understand the different parts of the human biology and anatomy. So there are different ways of calling this practice. We can call this the impurities of the body meditation. Some people call it the foulness of the body meditation. Some call it 32 parts of the body. So the Pali word is called asubha. Asubha. And why is it 32 parts? Because in the ancient days, that's how they segregate the body into 32 parts. The technology wasn't that advanced, unlike nowadays we talk about DNA and cells and stuff like that. In the past there weren't such microscopes, so they kind of separate the body in terms of all these things, the hairs of the head, hairs of the body, nails, teeth, skin, and so on and so forth. So in our routine, we normally just do the first 5. From the left column, you have hairs of the head, hairs of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. So the rest of the body, rest of the parts, like you have the flesh, tendons, bones, and so on, all the way to the internal organs, all these are the complete set of the Asubha meditation. Right, and there's a reason why we don't do the full set in our routine. First and foremost, even the monks in our ordination, we only do the 5, the preceptor, the monk that ordained us. they instruct us to just contemplate on the 5. Hairs of the head, hairs of the body, nails, teeth, and skin. So this is like the minimum requirement. Anything more or over visualization may require more guidance. So I think I've mentioned this in the past. There's a case called in the 𝐴𝐿𝐼 Sutta. There's a case with the monks in 𝐴𝐿𝐼 in the Buddha's time. They were overdoing it. The Buddha wasn't around. India was pretty big, so the Buddha was traveling all over India. So the Buddha wasn't present. So the monks were thinking, okay, let's do this impurities of the body meditation. The Buddha is praising this method, this technique. So they were contemplating all these parts of the body whole day, and they start to develop aversion towards the body. And what happened was they eventually committed suicide. There's a group of them committed suicide due to aversion to the body. So this is one form of extreme if one doesn't have right view or doesn't have right kind of guidance. So when the Buddha returned or sort of passed by 𝐴𝐿𝐼, he discovered that, oh, okay, this group of monks committed suicide. He gathered the remaining monks and gave them like further instructions, new instructions on how to practice. So in fact, he changed the instructions for them. If they are kind of this kind of mindset, might as well switch to breath meditation. Forget about doing these 32 parts of the body. However, this is an official kind of meditation. It's an official meditation. There are monks who achieved enlightenment through this practice, and it requires a kind of full commitment. So this meditation object can be practiced in and of itself. That means a person doesn't have to do other kinds of meditation. Like any meditation object, you can just pick one. You don't have to do multiple meditation objects. But in our routine, we kind of do a few to balance things up. So we have like loving kindness, we combine while contemplating these parts of the body to prevent aversion. Because the last thing we want is people committing suicide. And the things that we kind of perceive or visualize are just the external parts of the body, things that we can see in the mirror every day. So these aren't too extreme. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so any surgeon, any doctor also can be very skilled in identifying all the parts of the body. So what makes a meditator different from an ordinary surgeon? It's because of this particular slide, the same stock formula, the chorus or the repetitive verse, repetitive paragraph that we've been talking over and over again. So I'll just briefly read through. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself, or externally on the body in and of itself. That means a person can reflect on one's own body or someone else's body. For example, if a person were to observe an autopsy, they can look at the external body part. So that's external because that's not your body. Or you can focus in your body. But of course, we do not have X-ray vision, so most of the parts have to be visualized. You have to imagine. So this one requires a person to have a perception of the parts of the body already. Alright, so a person already need to look through all the 32 parts in order to visualize how is it inside of you. So whatever you visualize may not be the same as what your own internal organs may look like, because we do not have X-ray vision. Right, so whatever we imagine or visualize, it's a mental image. It's a mental image because our eyes are closed in meditation, or even if we open our eyes, we visualize the different parts of the body. It's all imagination. It's a visualization. So this visual meditation kind of subject usually can develop another kind of samadhi, not jhanas. It doesn't lead to jhanas. There is a way that leads to jhanas in the suttas, the kasina kind of method, which is quite large, unlike the post-canonical version, which asks you to kind of visualize a small disk. In the suttas, it's a large area, like the entire ocean body or the entire forest, the kind of large area. So if a person wants to enter this kind of jhanas through visualization, you need to really zoom in big. You need to sort of magnify and visualize very closely and zoom in as though like the parts of the body is very large. But in most cases, if we were to just think of the parts of the body in the actual size, it usually doesn't lead to jhanas. So most visualization practices normally lead to another kind of samadhi called the light nimitta samadhi, normally to train the divine eye. Yeah, so divine eye is one kind of samadhi. Jhanas is another kind of samadhi. So in our routine, we don't kind of do this for too long. There are certain communities or certain styles which require one to visualize certain parts of the body very long. Like they need to visualize a skeleton or part of a bone structure for a very, very long time. So they want to develop these other abilities, this second kind of samadhi, which is the divine eye samadhi, and not necessarily jhanas. Right? So the dangers, or I would say the side effects, if a person doesn't have enough calmness of the mind or doesn't have enough insight, and if they happen to develop divine eye, some people may find emotional trauma. Imagine if they were to start seeing ghosts or demons, or they start to happen to see past lives which are quite traumatic, it may not benefit them in their practice. It may lead to kind of a stumbling block for them. So it's not necessarily a good thing. So this one requires specialized guidance. So in our routine, we don't visualize for a long time. We kind of think of the external parts and we quickly move on. We think of the birth and death of the hairs, for instance. We don't kind of like make it still and stare for many hours. So we don't do that. Yeah. Okay. So very much with these instructions here. I'll just continue reading. Or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself, or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination with regard to the body, on the phenomenon of passing away with regard to the body, or on the phenomenon of origination and passing away with regard to the body. So that's the key emphasis on impermanence. So once we visualize the parts of the body growing and falling repeatedly and quickly, then there will be a sense of detachment. If we just look at the body itself, body part itself, without observing it arising and passing, then the delusion is still there. This is my body, my part of the body, my nails, my hair. So you have the sense of permanence there, becomes a sense of self. So the idea of constantly reflecting on impermanence is to reduce or overcome this sense of self. And the third paragraph, or the third point, or his mindfulness that there is a body, is maintained to the extent of knowledge and remembrance, and he remains independent and sustained by not clinging to anything in the world. This is how a monk remains focused on the body in and of itself. Okay, so for meditator or any meditator who wants to practice detachment towards the body, the key emphasis is on the second point, which is on the phenomenon of origination and passing away. So you need to observe impermanence, basically. So if a person, let's say, focus on their body, they have to reflect on impermanence. If they were to look at external object, maybe other person's body, they also need to reflect on impermanence. Right, so that's the main thing. If a person doesn't reflect on impermanence, I know of people who practice this Asubha for all kinds of various reasons. Some of them have the intention to use it for medical reasons. They want to develop X-ray vision, to see different parts of the people's body, to locate people's cancer and stuff like that. It might looks noble, but it's not the spiritual goal. It's not the spiritual endpoint. So with the reflection of impermanence, it will straighten one's view. If a person doesn't have right view, then they'll aim for permanence. They want to fixate the mind. They want to control the image. They want to sort of develop samadhi through a fixed image. So we are not particularly doing that. Okay, next. Okay, then the next category, still part of mindfulness of the body. Furthermore, just as a skilled butcher or his apprentice, having killed a cow, will sit at the crossroads cutting up into pieces, a monk contemplates this very body, however it stands, however it is disposed, in terms of properties. Okay, so these are the four elements in this body. There is the earth property, the liquid property, the fire property, and the wind property. So these are the four elements: earth, fire, wind, water. Some people may want to add the space element or the consciousness element or whatever elements you want to add in, but minimum there's this four. So in our routine, we don't really do the visualized kind. So in this example, the Buddha is kind of giving a physical equivalent of the four elements. For example, like the parts of the body, normally they'll give example. The solid parts of the body, like your hairs, your flesh, your bones, anything solid, they call it the earth element. Anything liquid, like a perspiration, the blood, saliva, and so on, these are the liquid property. And the fire property is the heat, the temperature. So the fire property cannot be seen with our naked eyes. The heat of the body cannot be seen with our naked eyes unless we have heat vision. We are not like the predator in some movies. So we do not have this heat vision. Right? So because of this, how to meditate on the four elements if you cannot see the fire property and the wind property? So wind property would be like the gaseous part of the body, like the person's gas in the stomach, or gas in the intestines, the air in your lungs. So this is the gas property, the wind property in the parts of the body. So these are kind of invisible to our naked eye. So in order to practice this four elements meditation, we can even define in terms of sensations. So in this way we can cover all four elements. So the earth element represents any hard or soft sensations, and fire element represents the heat, any hot and cold sensations. Wind element represents any kind of movement, fast, slow movement. So like your breathing has fast, slow movements, your heart beating, there's movements, any kind of movement you feel there. So that is the wind kind of element. And the water element represents the moist or dry sensations. So this way we cover all four elements. And there's another sutta called the Dhatu Vibhanga Sutta, the analysis of the four elements. It is also mentioned that the sensations can be also used to practice the four elements. So not just the physical parts of the body. Alright, next. In this way, he remains focused internally on the body in and of itself. So we have the elements inside, within the circumference of the body, the perimeter of the body, or externally on the body in and of itself, or both internally and externally on the body in and of itself. Or he remains focused on the phenomenon of origination and passing. So I don't want to read through, it's basically the same chorus. So the emphasis is to reflect on impermanence, because if a person do not reflect on impermanence, then it will be any ordinary Qigong exercise. Anybody can move the wind here, channel the wind to that part of the body, and usually their intention is to heal the body, to heal this part of the body, heal that part of the body, give you more energy or give you certain vitality. So we are not really aiming for that. We are aiming for detachment. The purpose is to reduce clinging. In the third point, to reduce clinging. So that's the function. So nothing wrong if a person wants to practice Qigong or chakra kind of meditation. They want to improve other aspects of their life, that's fine. But if you want to talk about Buddhist meditation, it has to lead to impermanence and detachment. So that's the key point. Okay, next. Okay, so these are the 9 stages of bodily decomposition. Basically, we can refer to the first diagram. I don't have to read through everything. And the picture will speak 1,000 words, so we're going to move back to the previous few slides. Yeah, so these are the 9 stages of bodily decomposition. So nearest to the meditating monk, you have like the fresh corpse, and the different 9 stages are the different stages of decomposition along the time. So the longer the corpse is exposed to the elements or to the surrounding environment, it will eventually decompose until it's left with bones. So these are the 9 stages. So in between you have like animals eating the kind of body, and you have the worms and the insects eating, and you have the corpse bloating and exploding and whatever not. So these are the 9 stages. So this one can't be also commonly practiced in most cities, unless you have like charnel ground. So in the Buddha's time, there's this charnel ground, or even in India nowadays, there's a place where dead bodies are kind of left in the open without being buried, or it hasn't been cremated. Then these bodies are kind of exposed in the air, and a person can actually observe the different stages of decomposition. So in Singapore, I don't think we have the opportunity. I'm not sure in Malaysia. I think Malaysia will do the same thing. The authorities, I think there's certain protocols. You need to inform the funeral director or the police or whatever, and they'll quickly, the funeral director or the undertaker will do something to the body. Will embalm the body, try to preserve the body. So you won't get a chance to see all these stages of decomposition. And in Singapore, I think most of the bodies will end up being cremated. You won't get to see all these stages anyway. And nowadays, popularly, there's a replacement kind of meditation. Instead of the 9 stages of bodily decomposition, there's this thing called the cemetery meditations, where people go to cemeteries and sit beside the tomb, and they meditate. And that is actually not the equivalent for these 9 stages of bodily decomposition, because the bodies are already buried underground inside the coffin. You cannot see anything, it's underground, and it gives a very different effect. Right? If a person goes there with right intention, is to contemplate on death, that's fine. But most people I know of goes there for adventure seeking, to try to scare themselves or try to look for ghosts and stuff like that. So that's not the right kind of view, not right kind of motivation. So I'd rather a person develop right view than going for such adventure trips. Okay, next. Okay, the previous. Okay, so this is the wordy version of the picture. For those who want to take note, these are the words, or you can check up on the sutta itself. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the same stock formula. The emphasis is on impermanence. No point looking at the different stages of decomposition, and you'll end up frightening yourself. You end up frightening yourself. Or some people, they end up getting excited. Nowadays, Hollywood produce a lot of zombie movies. Zombie movies. So some people see corpses, they start to imagine the Walking Dead or those kind of stuff. Zombie apocalypse kind of scenario. So no, so the reflection is not on zombie apocalypse scenario. The reflection is on impermanence. If we are to look at any part of the decomposition, we have to be mindful of impermanence, arising and passing. All these stages, these different phases will change, they arise and pass away. Alright, so this is the sharing for tonight. I think this should be the last of the 6 in mindfulness of the body. So the next week we'll proceed on to the other foundations of mindfulness. Okay, any questions so far from the ground?
I have a question about the thought that the sensation, we take it, there's some sensations, it's weak, heat, that's part of the body. But pain is by itself, we don't see it as part of the body.
Yeah, that's a good question. So pain is under feelings. So we'll be covering that next week. That's the second foundation of mindfulness. So
is there a component of a thought in pain, or is it just pure feeling?
Yeah, pain is a different category, but the treatment is the same. So our routine, we treat any sensation, any feeling with loving kindness first to kind of calm down the mind, and we can proceed on with impermanence after that. Yep, good question. Okay, anyone else? Any issues? Okay, if there's no questions, then we go for a break, 5-minute break. Then we come back for the meditation, guided meditation. Okay, so see you all later. Okay, if not, then we can proceed to the guided meditation. So you find a comfortable sitting posture. Make sure the back is upright and the rest of the body relaxed. Okay, so the first phase of the meditation we are doing is the impurities of the body meditation. We are going to visualize the body. So something that we've actually seen or have some clear memory. So we start off with all the hairs of the head, hairs of the body. And we're going to wish it well and happy. So visualizing the part of the body itself, there's no Dhamma value. So if a person just think of the hair, it can go to the extremes. A person can develop aversion if they dislike the hair. Hair is so messy, I don't like the fashion. Then you develop aversion. Or you find the hair very beautiful, very nice, you like the fashion. Then one may develop greed. So that is the two extremes. So when we want to practice the middle way, we start off with overcoming aversion. So we use loving kindness. we wish the hairs well and happy. So whenever we generate a new image, a new patch of hair, we need to intentionally wish it well and happy. And do not just come up with the image and don't think of anything. If you don't think of anything, then the mind will drift to the extremes. And we also need to have repetition. Generate a new image, new patch of hair, well and happy, new patch of hair, wish the hairs well and happy. So the phrasing is important. You wish the hairs well and happy. You're not going to wish my hairs. Once you add the I, once you add the me and the my, then you end up clinging. And the objective is to have detachment, non-clinging. But you end up become more self-cherishing, more possessive. My hairs. Then you have problems later. So we are learning to let go, not to control the hairs. So the imagination of the hair in this particular routine is called mindfulness of the body. And wishing it well and happy, that's part of right thought. And repetition is part of right effort. So we always keep the Dhamma wheel turning, keep rolling, turning the wheel, do not stop. It's either the mind is inclined towards skillful thoughts or unskillful thoughts. And unskillful thoughts means the mind will start to over-dramatize, go into story making. So we call this daydreaming. So no daydreaming, always intentionally wish the hairs well and happy. And you need to observe whether the mind is getting calmer or getting more agitated. So this will determine the right view. If we are pursuing other things other than the spiritual path, then the mind will have more craving and more tension, more suffering. If the mind is getting calmer, means you're on the right track, you're applying the right Eightfold Path, overcoming craving, reducing suffering. Okay, so this Asubha meditation doesn't lead to jhanas, but it comes down and lead to this baseline emotion. So it's a calm and neutral state, and no jhanas, no vipassana yet. So we kind of take note of this emotion. So this is the minimum requirement for insight. You need to have a calm mind first. And now we are jumping or switching to the insight aspect, which is what we've covered earlier on, mindful of origination and passing. So you think of all the hairs growing and falling, then go through birth, aging, sickness and death. So we think of them growing and falling, many cycles. and the focus is just on hairs growing and falling. Again, no over dramatization. Don't think of what kind of shampoo you're using, what kind of hair treatment, just hairs growing and falling. And as we do so, we can also observe the sense of self, the sense of clinging, sense of selfishness. Is it increasing or decreasing along the way? Okay, and we can ask ourselves, are these hairs truly self? Can we tell the hairs not to go through this birth and death? Next, we can visualize all the nails, fingernails and toenails, and we wish them well and happy. Okay, and if we find the mind relatively calm, then we can think of the insight aspect. So all these nails go through birth, aging, sickness and death. And we think of the nails growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this image, we can observe the sense of self. Is it increasing or decreasing? Then we can ask ourselves, are these nails truly self? Can we tell the nails not to go through birth and death? And we can now think of the teeth, all the teeth inside the mouth. May they be well and happy. All the upper rows of teeth and lower rows of teeth, may they be well and happy. And all these teeth go through birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of the teeth growing and falling, many, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can observe this sense of self or selfishness. Is it increasing or decreasing? And we can ask ourselves, are these teeth truly self? Can we tell the teeth not to go through birth and death? So the next part of the body, we're going to think of the skin that surrounds the entire body, and we're going to wish the skin well and happy. So every patch of skin, may they be well and happy. New patch of skin, may they be well and happy. And all the skin are subject to birth, aging, sickness, and passing away. So you think of them growing and falling, many cycles. And as we keep looping this process, we can observe this sense of self, this sense of attachment or detachment. Is it increasing or decreasing along the way? And we can ask ourselves, are the skin truly self? Can we tell the skin not to go through birth and death? And so this reflection is on detachment. We are not training the skin to look better. We are not training the hair to look better. We are not training the teeth to look better. It's to learn to detach from this body. Okay, and the next phase of meditation, we are doing the 4 elements, mindful of the 4 element sensations. So these are the earth, fire, wind, water elements. So the earth element represents any hard or soft sensations. Fire is hot and cold, wind is fast, slow movements, and the water is the moist or dry sensations. So there is no need to visualize from now onwards. Everything is feeling, using feel of sensations. So all these sensations are happening real time. No need to imagine, no need to deliberately generate any sensations. Let it appear naturally by themselves. So all is real-time evidence. So it can appear anywhere, doesn't matter, it doesn't have to fixate at any particular spot. As long as they appear at any part of the body, and we use the same formula, we first wish it well and happy, so that we don't struggle, we do not fight, we do not cling to those sensations. So we make peace with all the sensations. New sensation appear, may they be well and happy. New sensation appear, may they be well and happy. And if you are unable to identify or categorize which element they belong to, doesn't matter. You don't have to crack your brain. Just wish that sensation well and happy. So the 4 elements are just general kind of classifications. The whole idea is to sort of acknowledge, observe them, and deliberately wish it well and happy. And we keep repeating, huh? Any element let loose or left unguarded, left unchecked, is creating an opportunity for drifting to the extremes, either to greed or anger. If you like the sensation, then you start to dramatize. Oh, I had these past pleasant sensations before, where is it from? And you have start to create a whole series and dramas and episodes. And if you find the pleasant sensation very unpleasant, then again you link to certain past experiences. I experienced this before, and you create whole dramas and movies. So we do not want that to happen. Come back to the evidence, wish it well and happy. New sensation appear, wish it well and happy. Okay, if your mind is relatively calm, then this is the baseline emotion for this particular phase. So currently again, no jhanas or no insight at this particular stage. So we take note of this neutral or bland kind of emotion. So we call it baseline because we need to reference or compare with the emotions of other states of mind later on. Okay, once you've taken note of this state of mind and this baseline emotion, then we're going to cultivate this boundless loving kindness. So we're going to wish all beings in all directions well and happy, above, below, and all across all directions. May all beings be well and happy. So there is no need to push or exert the mind in any direction. You just make a gentle wish and let the mind extend naturally by itself. However far you wish to extend doesn't matter. The whole idea is not to create any form of strain or tension. And with that widened sphere of attention, we also detect the sensations, whatever sensations, whatever elements that appear. We wish all beings well and happy. So this is the non-discrimination approach. All beings are made of the elements. So we don't visualize. So these sensations may appear inside the body, outside the body, near or far, internally, externally, doesn't matter. Any sensation appear, we are going to wish all beings well and happy. So it's no longer just my body, It's all beings. So the reason why we don't visualize, because once we think of certain, maybe let's say a cute animal, then we have certain emotion, certain affection, and then we think of certain species, maybe a dangerous or scary insect, and you have another kind of emotion. So no, so we use the non-discrimination approach. Any sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. All beings are made of the elements. First aggregate, 4 elements made out of 5 aggregates. And keep coming back to the evidence. Sensation appear, may all beings be well and happy. So emphasize on the 3 ingredients. You have the right mindfulness, which is the sensations, the evidence, and then you have the right thought, may all beings be well and happy, to reduce aversion, and you have the right effort. That means keep repeating. Do not leave the mind idle, do not stop the wheel from turning. Okay, so if there's any increment of joy or happy emotions compared to the baseline emotion, then that's the indicator for the first level of concentration. Yeah, when the conditions are right, you have all the right thought, right effort, right everything, then it will trigger this right concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on turning the wheel, keep on wishing all beings well and happy. Do not stop turning for whatever reason. So we call this appropriate attention and clear comprehension. So you are aware. It's not like you're being taken over by something else. No, All this is part of skillful thinking. Requires skill. Okay, and now you're adding some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect how to create a more unconditional loving kindness. So we need to reduce this clinging with impermanence. So same thing, we observe the evident sensations, and this time the labeling, instead of wishing all beings well and happy, we're going to change to impermanence. So you can use any word or phrase related to impermanence. You can use rising and falling, this origination and passing, anicca. Just pick your favorite and keep repeating. So if there's real detachment taking place, there should be like a sudden surge of joy temporarily. So you just treat everything as a distraction, as a byproduct. Keep on turning the wheel. Keep on reflecting on impermanence. Okay, and if the joy and happiness start to disappear, it will eventually evolve to this emotion which is neutral and refreshing. So we call this equanimity, associated with the fourth level of concentration. So there's no more happiness or joy, just equanimity. And regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence, keep turning the Dhamma wheel. Okay, so all states of mind are impermanent. This is just a temporary recharge, because once you think of another thought, then it becomes a different state of mind also. Now we switch to the second sublime state, which is compassion. So for compassion, we are going to wish all beings, may they be free from suffering. So using the non-discrimination approach, all beings, regardless they are rich or poor, healthy or sick, as long as they cling on to the sensations, to the elements, to the aggregates, this will result in tension and stress and suffering. So whenever we detect any sensation, we are not going to cling or over-dramatize, we are going to wish all beings free from suffering. So no imagination. Conventional compassion requires one to worry. How to help this person, how to help that person, are they sufficient, and so on. So we call this restlessness and worry. So this can be very draining. So we do not want to drain at this point of time. We learn to recharge. Every time a new sensation appears, and we cut off the dramas by wishing all beings free from suffering. So remember the three key components. You have the right mindfulness, the evidence, the sensations. You have the right thought, may all beings be free from suffering. And you have the right effort, which is the repetition. So keep turning the Noble Eightfold Path wheel. Okay, and if all the conditions are right, you turn the Dhamma wheel like a turbine or motor, you generate enough Dhamma power, then you have this right concentration. So if your compassion starts to feel joyful or happy, so that's the indicator for the second level of concentration. And regardless of what you experience, keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. So the conventional compassion will be like very sad or sorrowful, and if you overdo it, it may end up in burnout or depression. So the more middle way kind of compassion should be happy. Yeah? So you look at figures like the Buddha or Kuan Yin, they're normally depicted with smiling faces. You don't see them pulling a long face. Keep on wishing all beings free from suffering. Okay, and we're going to add some insight, some wisdom, and we're going to reflect how to overcome suffering. That is to not cling on the five aggregates. And we're going to shake off this clinging with impermanence. So the same thing, we keep on reflecting on impermanence, all the sensations, observe how they arise and pass away. And we keep on labeling impermanence. Okay, if the joy and happiness start to disappear like before, and instead of the equanimity like previously, one may experience a more blank or spacious kind of experience. So we call this the perception of infinite space. So regardless of what you experience, keep on reflecting on impermanence. All perceptions are part of the clinging aggregates that lead to suffering. So keep turning the Dhamma wheel, keep on reflecting on impermanence. Okay, and we switch to the third sublime state, which is appreciative joy. So this time we rejoice with all beings. So using the non-discrimination approach, all beings, regardless of winners or losers, as long as they go through the process, they'll at least gain some kind of life experience. So similarly, when we experience or we feel a new sensation, we also gain some kind of experience. So whenever we detect any sensation, we can rejoice with all beings. New sensation appear, rejoice with all beings. So this is the non-discrimination kind of rejoicing. The conventional kind of rejoicing is only we support our favorite team and we rejoice when they're successful. When the other team gets successful, we don't cheer the same way. So we come back down to the common lowest denominator, back to the four elements. Any sensation appear, rejoice with all beings. Don't need to over-dramatize or imagine any scenario. Just rejoice moment to moment. Okay, if the mind starts to have enough of this Dhamma power, keep having the right conditions, right effort, right thought, everything, then this third sublime state will generate this third level of concentration, indicated by the emotion of happiness. And regardless of what you experience, keep on rejoicing with all beings. Okay, before we conclude this session, due to time constraint, same gentle reminder, in all our activities we can be mindful of any wholesome states of mind or mindful of impermanence, and with that in mind we can gently open our eyes, formally end the session, but informally still can generate right thought. Okay, any issues from anyone? Okay, if there's no issues, then we can do the dedication. Okay, Anumodana. Akasatha ca Bhumata Devanaga Mahidika Punyang tang anumoditva cirang rakantu loka sasanang etavata ca amhihi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe deva sabbe buddha sabbe sattva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Dedication of merits to the departed. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. Idang me nyatinang hotu sukita hontu nyatayo. And aspiration. Imina punya kamena mame bala samagamo. Satang samagamo hotu Yavani bana patiya. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we end off by paying respects to the Buddha by bowing 3 times. First bow. Second bow. And the third bow. Okay, that's it for tonight. Any announcements from Terence? If no announcements, then good night and see you all next week.